Hello and welcome to round 4 of the AMS Oz Formula 3 Development Series here at Paul Ricard. Well, practice has just ended. We're just waiting for the server to tick over. And once again, we've been joined by Josh. Ben, how's it going, mate?
Yeah, good. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. So, you've done a couple laps around here, as have I. Pretty interesting circuit in these cars. Pretty long lap.
Yeah, it is. It's just over 2 minutes per lap, which is a bit different in something like an F3. We're usually looking at a minute 20 a lap in most races, though 2 minutes is definitely a long way around. And with the speeds, um, usually over around 200k an hour, definitely feels like a long time going around the circuit.
Yeah, as you can see, this is a fairly long circuit, 5.842 kilometers, 14 turns. So it's only 9 laps, 9 lap races for tonight. Obviously, the track being pretty long and being 5.8 k's, and these races are, or the lap count is tied into the distance of the race. So that's why we've only got 9 laps this evening. And 14 turns, I've got to say, there's a couple tricky ones. I think the last two can be quite tricky. And then the slow stuff. The little tight right-hand hairpin at the end of the first sector there is also a pretty tricky corner to navigate as well. The rest of the circuit, though, fairly high speed and medium speed corners, which these cars eat up for breakfast. But yeah, it's just those slow ones, I think, where we're going to see a lot of the drivers struggle to get around and to find speed.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you there. It's all since these cars are so well, especially with the majority of the track, a lot of the drivers here are going to be setting up the cars for a lot of aerodynamics, going through the faster corners. So when they get down to the slow stuff, they're going to be solely relying not on aerodynamics, on mechanical grip, which affects them on the faster turns. So it's interesting to get the right balance and the right drive, right turn in, things like that.
Yeah, with the track having a lot of undulations as well as lots of little hills and bumps that they have to deal with, they can't just drop them as low as they can. They've got to have them a little bit higher up with their ride height if they want to obviously drop the tyre pressures to help them get through the slower corners as well. So there is a little bit of setup work that would have to be done if you want to help through those slower corners. But at the same time, you've got to have grip through these faster stuff as well. And then you've got some fairly long straights for F3 cars to deal with this back straight. We can see Turmo going down right now. That's going to be another one where we're probably going to see a little bit of almost like the little trains that you get going at circuits like Monza in these cars.
Absolutely. And one thing I did notice being out on the track in the practice session a little bit earlier is the fact that there's two distance boards coming into that chicane there. There's a distance board for the corner beforehand. Naturally, with Paul Ricard, most people will know that there's about 500 different layouts for the circuit. We're obviously using the GP circuit this weekend. There are two distance boards which can throw a couple drivers off. So if someone's sleeping or not thinking about entering that corner, it's going to be to be braking about 400 meters too early. So very interesting there.
Yeah, there are yellow bollards that indicate where each corner, well, at least where most of the corners are, that it can get lost on out on the track. So when you ride on board Turmo, as he's about to start his lap, you will see yellow bollards on the inside of a number of turns, and they sort of make it a bit easier for the drivers to navigate this track, which, as I've said, it's quite easy to get lost. We've seen Formula 1 drivers here last year get lost, so it is going to be a factor as you see Turmo begin first qualifying lap of the evening. Nice solid run through the first chicane, although it probably could have got on the... You want to carry pretty much full throttles through turn 2, but so he's got through there smoothly. Making it about 70 metres the second chicane. Not the greatest line through there on the marbles. He hasn't quite got over, so that's going to compromise his run for the double right, and it's the back end there under braking. Too eager on the throttle, wide, bit of a slide, 32.7 in the first split.
So he's definitely compromised his lap here. That was a lot of time in such a short amount of corners that that he lost there. So a bit disappointing to see, though. He'll be back for next lap.
Well, they only get one time lap, so...
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah,
one time lap.
Yeah, it's not like the Supercar Series where you get 2 time laps. It's 1 time lap per qualifying session. There's 2 qualifying sessions, so he will have another chance. And looking at the sector times, Wayne Whitmore is about half a second up on Turbo, with Brownie about 2/10 faster than Turbo. But it's done a nice run through the chicane. He didn't get lost, which is always a plus. Nice and flat to this long sweeper. And this one, you've got to build confidence up to, because you can carry a fair amount of speed for the initial part of it, but you don't want to lose a rear end, as what Turbo did there. He did well to save it in the end, but initially he took the initial part of that corner pretty well. Just a couple corners to go. This is some of the tight twisty bit. This final 2 corners are going to be a little tricky. It's not quite found the ideal line. It's going to put him wide for the final corner, and it's going to compromise his exit, as you can see. At exit of the penultimate corner, you've got to set it up for that final corner, otherwise you do lose a lot of time. And that is a 2:05.9 for Turmo. Whitmore sets it's about 3.7 faster, 2:02.1. So I believe that's that's not his personal best. He actually set a 2:01.7. He must have set that right at the end of practice, and we just missed it. So he's setting the pace at the moment. Had a mare in Montreal, so he'll be looking to turn it around. Brownie now goes to second with a 2:04.5. Just now, who else is out there on track? Got Cracker now. I think he's coming out of the final turn. .207.2. It's not a great lap from Cracker.
We have Luke Joyner come around the final turn.
Yeah, here he is. Looks like he's going to set a similar lap time, 2:08.9. But we'll probably see him improve as the weekend goes on. And Glenn Miles sets a 2:14.2 on his lap. Got no one else out on circuit doing a time lap at the moment. Just a couple of guys that have left the pitch. I do believe Gary Neville and Steve Bolger have both left the pitch and they're on out laps. So while we do wait for these 2 drivers to start their laps, just go over the championship standings at the moment. So bring up the live races page, just give me a moment. So we've got Ricky Slick currently leading the championship, run away at the moment. 195 with Brandan Rose second, 157. Luke Joyner hasn't been the fastest, but he's been very, very consistent. Nicked a couple cheeky podiums in there as well. He's on 120 points. Wayne Whitmore, he's had a couple nightmares of late. He's had pace, but hasn't been able to just put it all together. He's on 107. And he put a very nice lap together so far in this qualifying session. So if he gets away well, you can see him get his championship back on track. And then we've got Turmo on 101. River Whisper just 1 point behind on 100 points. Steve Bolger, again, he hasn't had the greatest season so far. He's qualified well, just can't quite get it together and be nice and consistent in the races. He's on 77. Got Gary Neville back. He's struggling with a bit of a back ailment at the moment. But he's out there having a crack. It's good to see. He's on 56. And then we've got Cracker, 52 points. Glenn Miles, 28. And then we have Lime Mitch, 18, who I believe isn't going to take the first race. He is there in the server, or he was. But he'll be back maybe for the second and third races. And then we've got Brownie on 15. And Brian Walsh on 0 points.
Just as you're reading out the championship standings there, Neville went a little bit wide on what I believe is turn 5, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, turn 5, on the exit of turn 5, and hit the sausage curbs there. So unfortunately, he did bounce his car around. That's something to keep in mind for these 3 races coming up in these cars. They're not a big fan of speed bumps at all, as you can tell by how low they are. So drivers better not go wide, otherwise they're going to be compromised massively.
Yeah, these cars, and especially those sleeping policeman curbs, are vicious. You do not want to be touching them because they'll quite violently bounce up and down, and that's if they don't spin the car out completely.
Yeah, I did, just during practice, I did hit the edge of turn 2 on the exit there. Hit a couple of those sausage curbs, and I'll tell you what, they are brutal. So, very, not the best way to exit a corner, but definitely the most interesting.
Yeah, quite thankful it's a sim in that case instead of real life, where you'd end up with a bit of a sore back afterwards. Gary Neville sets a 2:08.8. Moves him in front of Joyner and Glenn Miles. And we've got Steve Bolger out there. He's set 2 purple sectors so far, so he's looking quite handy at the moment. Got 6/10 up on Wayne Whitmore in the first sector, and about half a tenth faster in the middle, but he's just got to navigate this final sector. And compared to everyone else, that's where Whitmore's been pretty supreme. Bit conservative there. Final couple of corners here from Bolger. That said, he does have a little bit of time in his pocket, but we'll see how he goes. It's going to be a very decent lap time. It's the run down to the start-finish line, and is a 2:01.8, so he couldn't quite beat Whitmore's time in practice, and he did lose time in the final sector. But still, it is a very impressive lap time. And with the way Ricky Slick and Brandan Rose has been going, it might be a little difficult for those guys.
Well, there is a lot of inside locking for Ricky Slick there, though he has
3/10.
Yes, he has got. So obviously something's there working for him. So he's pushing the car right to the absolute limit at the moment. Obviously, hence that inside locking. So
He's giving it everything. Brandan Ross, who's also on a lap just behind him on the circuit, he's 7/10 down on Ricky Slick. But if he puts the rest of the lap together, he's in striking distance of certainly Wayne Whitmore. It's a bit of a slide there as Ricky Slick attacks the curbs aggressively there through the chicane. Don't think it would have cost him much time. Really, this second sector really just being pretty much that chicane and then the sweeper. And there you go, up by 7/10. So this is going to be a very low 2:01.1 here. If he can just put it together in the final sector. In fact, if he does put it together, if he matches Wayne Whitmore in the final sector, we could see even a sub 2:01.
So that'd be a pretty mega time if he's able to pull that off.
And Brandan Ross is also pretty handy in the middle sector as well. He set the second fastest middle sector, but he's still well off Ricky Slick's time at the moment. Once again, not the most convincing through the penultimate corner, but he set himself up nicely for the final turn as Ricky Slick. Nice, uses all the road on the exit, and this will be a very quick lap time. And he does 2:09.8, 8/10 up on Steve Bolger, who did set a personal best on his behalf. Brandan Ross can only manage a 2:02.0, 1 second off Ricky Slick, and he throws it off the road in frustration. But some very impressive lap times by Ricky Slick and Steve Bolger in the end there. But yeah, those first 2 sectors, mighty impressive from Ricky Slick. And he matched Steve Bolger in the final sector. So there's still a little bit of time there in that final sector for him to find as well, which is a bit scary.
Well, yeah, absolutely. When you consider that he was 9/10 ahead of second place, that's even better than Bottas this last weekend. That's a massive difference. It's a bit shocking, actually.
Yeah, that said though, qualifying is one thing and racing is another. But Ricky Slick certainly putting himself in a great position to continue his winning streak. But as it ticks over to the warm-up, we'll take a short break, but we shall be back shortly. Alright, and welcome back. Just had the driver's briefing. Now we've got about 3 minutes of the warm-up to contend with. So we're just waiting around. We've had a number of the drivers out there practicing starts and just learning, trying to improve their times and learn the track a little bit more. So we've had qualifying. Josh, how do you think the race, or at least race 1 in particular, is going to pan out?
Oh, look, I personally believe Ricky Slick, he's in a league of his own after that lap, that qualifying lap. He seems, just from what we've been watching in terms of practice starts and that qualifying lap, even in practice, he's very, very quick compared to anyone else around him at the moment. So personally, I believe that Ricky might have this one in the bag. Though saying that as well, it's not a hard track to muck up on. It's a if you put 1 foot wrong on this track, you can you can damage your lap time quite severely, which would bring someone like Ross right back into the firing zone for first place. So if Ricky's able to hold, well, I'd say from what we've seen of this season, he's able to hold his own pretty well. I believe he might have this in the bag. Though saying that as well, if he does mess up one of the corners, he's definitely back in the firing zone.
Yeah, I think the first couple of laps are really going to, barring mistake of course, I think they're really going to decide how the race goes. If Ricky's able to get away a little bit, I think it might be race over. But if we see Brandan Rose just stick around, that slipstream will come into play along the back straights, which could buy him time and just keep him in that race. And as long as he's in it, you don't know. And we've seen Wayne Whitmore, he's fairly quick around here as well, so he could find a bit of time, as could Steve Bolger. So there's still, once again, those 3 and 4 cars, just like they were at Montreal, they're quite quick and they're fairly close together. Although this time around in qualifying, Ricky Slick was able to put together just a mega lap. So while he might have the initial pace advantage as we see Ricky Slick and Brandan Rose drive into each other on the main straight there, while there might be, at least in qualifying, that big difference, I think in the race it's going to be a bit closer if drivers are able to keep their cool and not make those little mistakes, which around here, as we said, a couple of the slow bits are difficult to navigate. And then not only that, I think those, as the tyres get worn out just a little bit, I think those little sleeping policeman curves will probably bite a couple people. So there's a couple of things to look out for. Alright, the warm-up has ended. We're just waiting now for the race, or for it to tick over to the race, and away we will go. So we still wait, taking quite a while actually. There's no one out there on the circuit. There we go.
Oop, there we go. Pardon me.
That's alright. No one immediately going out on the circuit. Oh no, there we go. They've got a couple of guys got Turmo and Miles out there at the moment.
Now we've got Brownie. No one else has decided to join as of yet. Oh, Cracker. There we go. Very long warm-up lap, now that we think about it.
Yeah, it will be a very, very long warm-up lap. It's a very long to turn 1 as well. And turn 1 is a fairly, I wouldn't say a high-speed corner, but you can carry a fair amount of speed through there as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how these guys tackle it on the opening lap.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if the drivers want to compromise turn 2 to get the move done in turn 1, or vice versa. Because obviously, if you go out wide in turn 1, you've got a shocking turn 2 entry, and you compromise that whole straight. So it'll be interesting to see what people think, what they plan on doing, whether they just send it, so to say, or sort of wait off and try and hold their position and try and get them down at turn 3.
I think going around the outside is also quite a viable option with the next corner, obviously being a right-hander as well. And if you can just hold on around the outside, you will have the inside run to that right-hander, and then the next corner after that is also a right-hander, as you can see Ricky Slick going through right now. So the outside going to turn 1 isn't a disadvantage around here. So there's a couple ways you can play it. Anyway, we'll just run through the grid as Ricky Slick gets us through the first sector. And he will start from pole position after setting an absolutely blistering lap time, 2:09. And Steve Bolger will start in P2, followed by Brendan Ross in P3. Alongside him, we've got Wayne Whitmore, the Renault backed car, followed by Brownie in P5 in the Red Bull sponsored car. P6, we've got Turmo. Cracker will start P7 with Gary Neville alongside in P8. Then we've got Luke Joyner, who is starting towards the back end of the field, but as we've seen quite often, he doesn't start the fastest during weekends, but as they go along, he finds time and picks up positions. So he's one to look out for as the night progresses. And then Glenn Miles will start in P10. Live Mitch is in the server, but he's currently busy at the moment, so he will not be racing in race 1, but we should hopefully see him for qualifying 2 and races 2 and 3. Got all the drivers out there at the moment just warming their tyres and brakes, which every driver's briefing it is emphasised that they are to warm their tyres and brakes, because these cars and tyres, when they're cold, they do not operate in a way that makes them easy to drive. So,
absolutely, they're when the whole car, well, the cars are obviously designed to race at race conditions and race temperatures, so when they're cold, it feels like they're on ice, so to say.
yeah, especially the rear tyres in particular, they got to have some kind of temperature in them, because if you don't, you do find yourself spinning like a top quite easily. But at the same time, you don't want to overheat them, because you'll also spin like a top. So it's a very delicate balancing act, and in this mod in particular, the front tyres actually, quite often you have a hard time getting them up to temperature. So perhaps some setup tweaks from a few of the drivers will help them cope getting the fronts up to temperature and providing a little bit better balance. Anyway, got the drivers forming up onto the grid. I've got the greatest of track cameras around this circuit, so we do apologise. What we'll do, we'll ride on board a car at the back, so we'll jump on board Luke Joyner, and we'll be able to see how the race gets underway from his perspective down in ninth. But anyway, we've got 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. Away we go. Glenn Miles got a drive through for jumping the start, and I don't think Brendan Ross has got a particularly great start, and Whitmore looking to get around him already. Steve Bolger's jumped into the lead. He did start with on the rubber side of the track and holds on around the outside. Slick's going to try and get him on the switchback, but I was going to say he wasn't going to be quite close enough, but he's got a much better run, and he's looking to move up back into the lead into turn 3. And he gets it done, but he does outbrake himself a little bit. He will hold on. Brendan Ross did hold on for P3, and in fact, a little bit of contact there with Steve Bolger, and he's sort of nudged Bolger there onto the anti-cut. But Brownie's had a pretty strong start. He's got past Wayne Whitmore, who was challenging Brendan Ross, but he's dropped back. Ricky
Brownie just in turn 3 there, so sorry to interrupt. Brownie just into turn 3 there did have a big send on Wayne Whitmore. Nearly got in contact. It was very close.
We've had Steve Bolger get in front of Brendan Ross, who's lost it under braking and had to cut the chicane. Almost, there might have been slight contact with Bolger. I thought he was going to just wipe him out, but thankfully no major contact between the two, and Rossi's only dropped down behind Brownie, who's had a fantastic start and the initial start of this lap. He's hanging on quite well. Behind them, got Turmo trying to hunt down Wayne Whitmore, who's about a second off Brendan Ross now. Behind them, Luke Joyner up 2 spots. He's got past Gary Neville and Cracker. And Glenn Miles a few seconds adrift. So looks like Ricky Slick extending his gap at the front already. It's the big battle at the moment Steve Bolger, Brownie, Brendan Ross, Wayne Whitmore. As you see Brendan Ross try, have a look up the inside. They're going to go side by side at the penultimate corner between Brownie and Ross, but Brownie will have the inside line. Ross trying to hold on to the outside, and he's on the racing line. He's going to be side by side over the start finish line, and Ross probably has the advantage now going into turn 1, but no, he doesn't. He doesn't have the straight line speed, which Brownie did have the straight line speed because he had a slipstream from Steve Bolger, but Brownie runs a little bit wide, and it's compromised his exit for turn 2, and now Brendan Ross will get that move done. Brownie now is trying to get the switch back on. Decides against it, as we see Whitmore a bit defensive with Turmo right behind him. Bit of contact between the two. Hopefully no damage there. It's a frenetic start from second place all the way down to 6th. So, looks like it may be a little bit of contact, or Turmo just making a slight mistake there at turn 6. And he's dropped now a couple seconds now behind Wayne Whitmore, who's trying to get onto the back of Brownie, who's lost out to Brendan Ross now. Brendan Ross trying to hunt down Steve Bolger, but I've got to say Brownie's done a fantastic job so far. Hasn't been the quickest guy out there in practice or throughout this season, but at the moment he's doing quite a good job.
I'll tell you what, that scrap between Brownie and Ross, that was very exciting coming out of the last turn there. It looked like Brownie was very friendly to Ross there. He left him a lot of racing room around the outside, which was nice to see. Personally, I wouldn't have done that myself. I think I would have been a little bit more aggressive. Though, it is good to see some hard, fair racing, which is what's going on right now.
Yeah, I think early on, you probably don't have to be so aggressive, because we have seen a lot of these guys in the past make mistakes, and Brownie just thinking, okay, Rossi's might be a bit faster than me, so I'll just let him go and race my own race. And at the moment, he's still got a little bit of a gap and holding on to P4 quite comfortably, so he's doing a good job. And as we can see, Ross is sort of extending away quite quickly in front of him, so perhaps a smarter move there as Brownie sets his personal best. 2:04.0. That's his fastest lap of the weekend, so he's travelling quite nicely. And Brendan Ross now is closed that gap up to Steve Bolger, and Bolger sort of held on 1.6 seconds to Ricky Slick, so that gap hasn't really changed on that last lap. In fact, Bolger 0.3 faster. But the fastest man...
Sorry, it just looks like Turmo's dropped right off. I'm not too sure what happened there, because he was around the mid-pack just a moment ago. He might have had a spin or something like that.
Just cut to a replay. Looks like he's had a spin. So, coming out of the final corner, he's ran a little bit wide. There it is. He's gone over the sleeping policeman, kept his foot in it, and he spun around. Thankfully, he stopped just before the wall. But that is why he is now at the back of the field. Oh, he's had another spin of gone live. Almost ended up colliding with Gary Neville, who had nowhere to go there. And in fact, Wayne Whitmore's also dropped down the field. So Wayne Whitmore's had a spin. It looks like the exit of turn 5 there, just gassed it up, had a half spin, and then had a full spin. So, bit of drama for Whitmore and Turmo. That moves Gary Neville up to 7th. Cracker now up to 6th place. Luke Joyner up 4 spots. Once again, Mr. Consistent, doesn't make many mistakes. He's the quickest. But finds himself in P5. And Steve Bolger, he's also dropped down as well. He's now down to 4th place.
And just as we're talking about that, Brownie is right back onto Ross again. So there might have been something might have happened there between Ross and Joyner. Oh, sorry, Bolger. So interesting to see what happened there.
It's a bit too far back for the replay, but yeah, Brendan Ross middle sector 45.7. Steve Bolger's middle sector a 49.7. So both those guys good weight off the paces. Brownie now also has a half spin coming out of the final turn, and that will allow Bolger to have a run on him down the straight. So drivers at the moment just dropping like flies. I think Ricky Slick's the only one that's not really made a mistake. And Bolger on that last lap, he actually set a purple first sector, but yeah, that middle sector costing him dearly. And that's pretty much put pay to his chances of getting a race win, as he uses a lot of curve there at turn 2. But he's still in a podium place for now. So he's got Brendan Ross 4 seconds up the road. Ricky Slick pretty much 10 seconds. Oh, in fact, Turmo, he's had a spin through turn 1 and 2 there. So looks like these guys are just cooking their rear tyres at the moment. And they're struggling to compensate for that. Yeah. Turmo just losing the rear end at turn 1. Around he went. And Wayne Whitmore also, he's must have had another spin as well, because he's only just in front of him. And once again, Wayne Whitmore having a mare.
Ooh. Turmo's had another spin in the background there.
Yeah, once again, so he's just cooking. You know, those rear tyres must be in the region of 115, 120 degrees with the amount of spins he's been having, and the more you spin it, the higher those temperatures are going to get as well. So he's just got to take it easy for a couple of laps and get those temperatures back under control.
But by the way he's been driving, it might be better for him just to sit for 20 seconds on the side of the road.
We've had Brandan Ross had a spin, and that's going to allow Bolger back up to P2. So everybody with Ricky Slick at the moment is spinning all over the place. So Bolger looked very wide there at as turn 12. So Bolger now back into P2. So quickest man on the circuit at the moment, but the way it's been going, he's probably going to have a spin or two, as is Brandan Ross the way it's going.
Tell you what, Ricky Slick must be loving this at the moment. No pressure whatsoever for him.
Yeah, well, you just have to take it easy through the mid corner on the exit. Doesn't have to gas it up because he doesn't really have to push out there. With that 9-second gap on that last lap, Bolger, good. I think it's 7/10 faster than Ricky Slick, but that's not going to be enough with 4 laps to go. He's going to need to be about 1.5 to 2 seconds faster. But I think if I was Bolger, I'd just take it easy for the remainder of the race and just try and keep hold of second as he slides at turn 5. And Brandan Ross also had a slide, got very wide, had to go over the sleeping policeman, got a bit airborne there. Both of them making a slight mistake there. Both of them losing a bit of time to Ricky Slick and to Brownie.
Looks like Joyner's had a spin too.
Yeah, he's had a spin. So that is at turn 5 and 6 as well. Yeah, just lost the back end. Under braking and in the mid corner. And then tried to get it going again and had another couple half spins. So that dropped him behind Gary Neville and Cracker. See Cracker lock up at the chicane, and Joyner is going to try and go around the outside of him. So not quite close enough to get the job done this time, but he does have a slipstream and he might try and get the job done into turn 11. As I say that Bolger might close in on Ricky Slick. Ricky Slick setting a purple first sector. It's not slouching about his Ricky Slick, even though he does have a 10-second lead. Oh, let's just see Cracker. Cracker's gone around. So these guys just a little bit too eager on the loud pedal. And, well, that's another spin. I think we've had upwards of 10 spins at least so far.
What? I wonder if it's just if it's mistakes or if they've gotten the setup wrong. Because there is a lot of spinning going on at the moment. There's a lot of mistakes on the track. So I wonder if something's caught out the drivers here.
It could just be it might just be a little bit of setup and a little bit of just over driving. See, once you get into a race session, you see cars in front and behind you, and you just want to drive that little bit harder. And I think they're just not dialing it back and just over driving it. And you're getting little slides as they push as well, which increases the rear tyre temperatures, and then when they get a little bit high, makes it easier to spin. As we see another spin, Gary Neville has gone around. Where did he have that spin? Looks like turn 3. No, not turn 3. Turn 4. Looks like he got on the curb while he was on the power, and that sent him around. So he's dropped down to 7th. Here's Whitmore back up to 6th place, who's got Luke Joyner not too far up the road. Oh, to see Luke Joyner go around. So there's another spin. Looks like too much curve, I think, at the chicane, and then got on the power while the car was still unsettled, and around he goes. And we've had Whitmore go around as well. So
we've had Turmo turn around. Cracker didn't even look like he even attempted to make that last corner. He locked it up and cut the corner straight away. So there's it's a bit of a wild race, this one.
It's all going on. And Gary Neville out of all that, he's moved up to P5 now, 3 spots from where he started.
Well, Brownie had a half spin there coming.
Yeah, and got Glenn Miles off the road in the background as well there. Bolger didn't have a great lap either. They set a 2:04 on that lap, with Brandan Ross setting a 2:03.3. Both of them losing out to Ricky Slick. He's got that gap up now to 10.4 seconds.
Ross is inching closer and closer at this stage. He'd be getting a bit of a taste again for that second spot on the podium.
You do see Bolger. Both Bolger. I've seen a lot of people going into. Oh, as you see Ross once again, just a little bit too eager into turn 5 there. But that little run between turns 4 and 5, we see a lot of people just trying to get on the power immediately after turn 4 and not setting themselves up for turn 5. And I think that's where we've seen a lot of drivers sort of it's where they're losing time, as well as they're losing it because they're just too eager to carry too much speed and then slow down for that turn 5 and hairpin there. So perhaps if they dialed it back a little bit at turn 4, set themselves up a little bit more on the left-hand side, it would open up turn 5 for them and make it a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think you're spot on there. We've been, just as we've been watching the race, we've been watching Ricky Slick run through there, and he's been quite reserved actually compared to the other drivers. He's been setting himself up for that turn 5, which obviously has got its dividends at the moment. He hasn't made a mistake as of yet, touch wood. Though compared to the other drivers, they look like they're really pushing out at turn 4 as if there was a straight. Instead, they're coming straight up into another braking zone, and they're either too wide and they're on the marbles, or they're just that little bit too quick or anything like that, which is compromising quite a bit.
It's the same thing at the final 2 turns 14 and 15. You see a lot of drivers push through the exit of turn 14 and just compromises the final turn. So we're right on board Ricky Slick for a lap. We'll just compare his lines to what we've seen so far. So it looks like he's driving very slowly, conservatively at the moment, as he's got a massive gap. So he's just taking it easy, but we should be able to see just the different lines he takes. So this is turn 3. And this is the turn 4 that we're talking about. A lot of drivers go into the middle of the road. You want to get a little bit further to the left and open up that entry. So he's not done it. He's doing what everyone else has been doing there. But, and he's taking it easy. So I think, yeah, just a little bit greedy on that exit of turn 4, and it just compromises them through not only turn 5, it doesn't muck your run up for turn 6. And you want a good run through turn 6 because that leads on to that back straight, because turn 7 really isn't a corner.
Absolutely. Like there's were you on the onboard there? Pardon me.
Yeah.
Yep. So you might have seen the large amount of track on the left that not many drivers have been utilising. I think that's a great area. That's a great area to get your car into. Not right to the left, but maybe about a car width from the left there. I think that's where you're going to get your best run into that corner without having to use the sausage curb and compromise yourself.
Yeah, you're not really going to get all the way over to the left-hand side without actually costing yourself more time. So as long as drivers can get a little bit further over to that left-hand side and not be in that middle of the road, they'll find a bucket load of time, and it'll actually help their tyres as well, as they're not putting so much strain on them. So as you can see at the moment, just taking it easy. It's a nice big stroll from him. He just wants to cruise home to the finish and not have a spin. As you can see, he's taking it nice and easy there through turn 14. Now the final turn. You don't really want to use that curve with the entire unsettled cut. It's quite a large curve, and he's about to start the final lap. But we'll drop back towards the battle for second place. We've got Brandan Ross and Steve Bolger within a second of each other. Then we do know these cars do have quite a big slipstream, so we might see Brandan Ross, if he can keep it clean on this lap, make a lunge somewhere. That said though, Bolger is pushing. He's at a 2:02.9 on that last lap. compared to a 2:02.7 from Brandan Ross. So these two are pushing, and just for comparison's sake, they're a good 1.3 to 1.5 seconds faster than Ricky Slick in front. So these guys are still going at it, while Ricky Slick's just having a bit of a stroll at the moment.
Yeah, Ricky Slicky doesn't need to push at the moment. He's if he pushes now.
Oh, so you see Bolger just lose the back end at turn 5. So just once again that middle of the line entry tried to get on the power when he still had a lot of steering lock on, and that's allowed Brandan Ross to get through as he had that little half spin there.
Oops, sorry, lost you for a second there though. Looks like they're still very close. It looks like Bolger's right back on Ross there, so it'll be an interesting final part of this race.
Well, they've got 22 seconds to Brown in front, so Bolger, if he does just go gun-ho in the final sector, or he might just go gun-ho in the last sector and just try a bonsai final sector to get himself back into P2, because he still has a large gap behind him to stay in P3 should he make a mistake. So you see Ross a little bit sideways and squirmish there through the middle part of turn 11. Looks like Ross for now is going to hold on barring mistakes. Only got a couple corners to navigate. Lock up there. Brandan Ross and Steve Bolger is wide, so barring a spin out of the final corner, Brandan Ross will take P2, but Ricky Slick made 0 mistakes, 0 spins compared to everybody else, and he takes a comfortable race 1 victory and continues his winning streak. Brandan Ross will hold on to P2. Steve Bolger will finish probably a frustrating P3 for him. Just a couple silly mistakes allowing Brandan Ross to get the better of him in the end. He knocks out the T1 board. But Brownie, though, he's had a pretty decent run. He'll come home very handy P4 in the end. And in the early stages, he was hanging in there with Steve Bolger and Brandan Ross as well. So nice drive from Brownie. And then in P5, you have Luke Joyner, who did have a couple spins, as did, well, pretty much everybody but Ricky Slick. But he'll hold on. Whitmore was behind him, but he's had a spin coming out of the final corner. And that's going to drop him behind Cracker. So Luke Joyner will finish P5. Cracker will steal P6 in the end. And Wayne Whitmore, that spin costing him P6 there, he'll finish P7. And we've got Gary Neville out there. He hasn't got a front wing, so he's at an off somewhere. And he's just creeping around at the moment. Coming around the final corner to finish in P8. So there it is. And then we've got Turmo. He's a fair way behind as well. He's got, I think he's at turn 12 there. And we've got Glenn Miles. He's a lap down. He would have crossed the start-finish line, I believe. No. He's still got a couple of corners to go. In fact, he's just in front of Turmo on the road, so they'll finish around about the same time. But, well, that's race 1 done and dusted, and everybody but Ricky Slick, they've got a bit of work to do because they've all been struggling just to keep it on the road.
Yeah, fair. Not something that we normally talk about when we consider the amount of spins and mistakes that were there, though. Saying that as well, a lot of these drivers will be having to have a look at the whiteboard again, have to sort of sort themselves back out for race 2. Maybe if they just take a breath for a second and calm down rather than pushing as hard as they were, that might be all they need.
Yeah, I think just dialing it back just a little bit, and perhaps maybe they need to make a couple setup changes just to make the car a little bit more stable, especially in the mid-corner and the exit under power. I think if they're going to make any changes, that would probably be the advised ones, because the high-speed stuff you can sort of take care of pretty easily in these cars. So it's all about just that mid-corner and that exit. Just trying to have their cars nice and stable, because, as we've seen, Brownie didn't make too many mistakes in the midfield, and Luke Joyner did have 1 or 2 spins, but he made a lot less than Wayne Whitmore, who was a bit faster than him, and it was the same with the likes of Cracker as well, and he found himself up there in P5 at the end. So those two guys made the least amount of mistakes really in the midfield, and they got themselves some decent results because they didn't spin. Alright, well we're just going to tick over now for qualifying 2. And just a reminder for those watching that the results of this qualifying session do tie in with the grid for not only race 2, but they do sort the grid out for race 3, but in reverse order. And should a driver not set a lap time, they will be starting at the back of the field for the final race as well as the second race. So we're just waiting now at the moment. We do apologise for being a bit quiet, just waiting for the time to tick over. And
It is taking its time.
it is taking a while. It looks like a driver has cranked their engine and going to get out there.
Does look like it's Termo, the one who cracked his engine. Turned it over.
Yeah, it sounds like there's another car also out there. Turned his engine on. So Termo, once again, is going to be the first one out there to set a lap. Very eager to get going. 10-minute qualifying session, or shoot, they do have one shot at a lap.
Hopefully, Termo this time he's thought about what he did compared to last qualifying session and does improve. Because he did make a couple of mistakes last qualifying session.
Yeah, just a couple little minor mistakes. It did cost him a bit of time in the end, and I think he might have been listening to us there because his run between turns 4 and 5 there, at least on his out lap, were pretty much where he'd want to be. And it made it a lot easier for him. So if he does that in his qualifying lap, he should find himself a little bit quicker, should he not make a mistake anywhere else on the lap.
He must have jumped into the live commentary really quick. Had to listen.
Perhaps he's got the stream up, listening to it while he's racing. I do know there are a couple of guys that do that in other series I know of.
Might be a good little spatial awareness thing to see where people are at on the track and whatnot. So
we do know our illustrious leader, Brock Harvey, he does sit in the commentary booth while he's racing as well, so he knows what's going on. It would be a bit annoying hearing the commentators going all the time, but that's what he does, and whenever he hears his name called or he knows he's on camera, he does flash the lights.
His ears perk up.
Yeah. Alright, so we've got Termo now. He's coming through turn 13. And about to begin his lap. We'll right on board with him. Looking over his left shoulder. And that's not the greatest line there coming into the final turn. And that'll probably cost him about half a tenth into turn 1. So be a K or 2 down than what you probably want to be when you start this lap. Now let's just see if he's more aggressive this time out, because he was very conservative in the first chicane last time out. Still a little bit conservative, but I think just a bit more aggressive this time. He carried too much speed through the initial part. Now up to turn 3 and 4. Turns in very early. Through turn 4. Nice. Opens the corner up there. Nice and beautifully there for turn 5. 31.6, so he's 6/10 up on what he set in his first sector in the first qualifying session. So I think he's learnt his lesson. Very handy first split, in fact. Where does he brake for the chicane? He brakes about 70 metres there for the chicane on the back straight. And pushing a bit harder this time. the track is rubbered up for this race. The server host did forget to set it to 0 rubber or light rubber, so they are on a heavy rubbered in track. 42.4 middle sector, so solid lap here from Sermo. Now it's just the final sector. The power fairly early there, but a little bit squirrely on the exit there of turn 11. Hopefully that traffic in front of him either speeds up or gets out of his way. Looks like it's Cracker, and he's getting out of the way. Good to see. Now just the final 2 turns. Don't want to run too wide here, which he did on his outlap. Doesn't do it this time, but he's got on the power too early, and he's over the sleeping policeman, and that's going to cost him dearly. It'll be very frustrating, because that would have been quite a handy lap. I reckon that would have been a 202 or 203. Instead, it'll be a 208.8.
What a shame. It looks like he, as he crashes his car in frustration there, which I can completely understand. It looks like he was just on board with him. He looked like he was in second gear coming through that final turn. Looks like that pushed the car right out wide. It gave it a fair bit of understeer, under power as he was on the exit there.
Yeah, I think he was just a little bit impatient, just getting on the throttle. As you see, Whitmore is very wide into the final corner, so he didn't do what Turmo did and try and set himself up for it. But he gets through it. I think this will be a pretty handy lap for Whitmore, but his first sector's 1.5 seconds off what Turmo's was. And he can only manage a 2:05.1, so that's about 3 seconds slower than his qualifying 1 effort. So he'll be quite frustrated with Whitmore. So he must have made a mistake. I think his final sector wasn't too great, and his first sector wasn't too great either. So a bit frustrating for him. I believe Cracker now, he's the only one out there. I know we do have Luke Joyner out there on a lap as well. Cut to him.
And he's actually half a second quicker in the second sector.
Yeah, so this time in all sectors where Whitmore could be a bit quicker. That said though, Joyner very wide through the exit of turn 11.
Very nice exit.
Too bad out of turn 12. Now the final 2 turns. Does he give himself room to turn in? Well, yeah, gave himself a little bit of room. Probably should have gone out of first gear, but he's kept it in second. And I think he's going to top his effort for qualifying 1. No, not quite. 2:05.1. So he was up by quite a bit over Whitmore, but his final sector let him down quite badly there. Now we've got Cracker. He's about to cross the start-finish line. And he sets a 2:05.8. Gary Neville, he's about to start his lap. Brownie set a first split, but he must have got a track cut or had an accident somewhere. So he's back in the pits. He will not set a lap time, so he'll start at the back for races 2 and 3. But looks like we'll cut to Gary Neville, the only one out there at the moment on a time lap. Also got Steve Bolger warming his tyres up on an out lap, and then we'll see, I'm sure we'll see Ricky Slick and Brendan Ross out there probably in the next 15 seconds or so. They'll need to get out there, otherwise they won't get a lap in. So see Gary Neville up by 0.2 pretty much in the first split. That said though, he's compared to Turmo, about 1.3 off the fastest first sector set so far. It's just how frustrating it must be for Turmo. If he hadn't had that spin, even if he had set an average final sector, it would have been about 5 seconds faster, and he'd be in the 2:03s and on provisional pole.
And Brendan Ross have come onto the circuit for their warm-up lap before their 1-lap dash.
Yeah, so they're leaving it very, very late. Gary Neville 3/10 up on Whitmore, and at the same split, yeah, I think it was Turmo was in the 1:14s at the middle split, so he'll be kicking himself. So interesting line from Gary Neville through turn 11. This is where Whitmore was able to at least put some of his lap together.
So it looks like Steve Bolger has just started his time lap as well, just going through turn 4 at the moment.
Yeah, so we'll cut to him once Gary Neville finishes his lap, but we'll keep an eye on Steve Bolger in the first split on the live races. If you want to check out the live timing, amsoz.liveraces.com. So you see Gary Neville out of the final turn over the line. He's currently P3, so he lost out a good half a second there in the final sector. We'll cut to Steve Bolger, who's a tenth off what Turmo set in the first split, but he's a good 1.4 up over Wayne Whitmore in the first split. So how does his middle sector compare? And he's up by a considerable distance, so this is faster than Turmo was in the middle sector. 2.5 up. 42.2 is the fastest middle sector we've had. Not too bad through turn 11 either. Got the power nice and early. Nice exit. Doesn't overdo it through turn 12. It is very easy to do. Get on the power too early and run wide there, but he's done a nice job. And 2 corners to go. Does he tuck in? A little bit. Down to first gear. Nice exit. So this will be pole position for the moment. Have to see what Brandan Rose and Ricky Slick can do, but this will be a fairly handy lap time. There it is, a 2:01.9 for Steve Bolger. So he'll be pleased with that one.
Looks like Ricky Slick's 3/10 down. No, through the first sector there.
Ricky Slick 32.0 in the first split, yeah, so he's 3/10 down in the first sector. And Brandan Rose is a tenth off him, so we'll see how these guys go in the middle sector. They've not started their laps particularly well. And it was the first sector, really, that set Ricky Slick up in the first qualifying session, so it should be pretty close. And he's down by half a second in the middle sector, so he's lost a couple tenths as well.
Brandan Ross 1.1 seconds down.
So Steve Bolger in prime position at the moment. There still is one final sector to go. And Ricky Slick, oh, he's very, very nice through turn 11. I reckon he would have made up a tenth or two just from that corner alone. Turn 12 again, he's pushing very hard. He's in all the road and a little bit more, so he's trying his best. He's just got to keep it clean through the final two. A little bit of a lock-up on the entry to turn 14. I reckon it's going to be very close. I reckon he's had a very, very good final sector, here's Ricky Slick, so it's going to be pretty close, I reckon. Under the Pirelli Bridge. So he gained 2 tenths, but it's not enough. So 2:02.2 for Ricky Slick and a 2:03.0 for Brandan Rose. And that is it. Glenn Miles, Brownie and Lime Mitch not setting a lap time. So Steve Bolger will start race 2 from pole position, and he'll have Ricky Slick for company on the front row. So Josh, how would you evaluate the lap times we saw in qualifying 2 there?
Oh, look, it's looks like Steve Bolger, he'd really tidied himself up that lap for that qualifying lap. He looks like he really settled himself down rather than overdriving the car as we'd been talking about previously. So that looks like that's worked quite well for him. He didn't look like he did much else different. So obviously it's gotten him the top spot for qualifying. He's in prime position for race 1. So that's awesome to see. A little bit surprising about Ricky Slick through sector 1 and 2, losing a bit of time there. I personally didn't expect that. Must have just made a mistake or two. Not too hard, though, considering how consistent he was that first race. It is a little bit surprising. Looks like the midfield's going to be fantastic for this race. It's look, everyone's very tight together in qualifying anyway. So it would definitely be a great battle for even for fourth.
We did see in Montreal there was sort of those two packs where we had the faster guys all being separated by not much. That being Steve Bolger, Ricky Slick, and Wayne Whitmore. Although we did see mistakes from Bolger and Whitmore sort of drop them away. But then there was that second group of cars which were all really close together and did battle all race long. So I think once again, if we can just see less mistakes from the drivers, we should see really two distinct battle packs, possibly even three distinct battle packs, all being formed and battling throughout the race.
Looks like a few cars driving out onto the track at the moment.
You've got Luke Joyner out there at the moment. Also got Brandan Rose, looks like he's going to head out on track. Don't know if he's going to practice starts this time. He's lost it already out of turn 2. So they've got to, if you want to summarise race 1 up, that is pretty much it from everybody but Ricky Slick. So if you missed race 1, what Brandan Rose did just there, that was everybody from second place down. Is spin galore. Got Brian Walsh in chat a while ago in race 1 there. It's a spin fest, and couldn't agree more.
Yeah, see, these cars, that you are pushing these cars to the limit of aerodynamical grip, especially on a track like this, a Formula One circuit, let alone. Using all that downforce, if you do mark up something in the setup, it makes the cars almost undrivable. So that might have been something that we saw in race 1's there, or due to the fact that the guys were overdriving the cars and they were just overheating the tires. It might have been just on ice.
Yeah, I think it's just a case of drivers just overheating and overusing their rear tyres just a little bit too much. And perhaps I think we might see a few drivers in this one. They might compromise their setup in a way that it might not be as outright, well, it won't be as quick as what they would be on, say, the default setup or with the setup they currently have, but they might move the weight, say, forward just to give a little bit of balance and take a little bit of pressure and weight off those rear tyres just to smoothen things out balance-wise, especially from lap 3 onwards, because that's when we really did start to see drivers lose the back end. It was from lap 3 onwards, and from then on it was just spin fest from everybody, and it was just people just struggling to hang on, especially to the rear tyres, and especially through, as we said, sort of this corner here. We saw, as you see Lion Mitch there at turn 5, a number of spins through there from people just coming in too hot or people just gassing it up on the exit. As you see Lion Mitch go around once again, that's at turn 6. And that'll be because he was out there on the curb. It is good to see Lion Mitch out there because he did miss race 1. So try and find a driver out there, and we're right on board for a lap. We'll follow Luke Joyner around for 3/4 of a lap. There he is at turn 3. And there it is. There's a little bump in that corner that drivers have struggled on. At turn 5, as well as the curbing. And then we've had other drivers struggle through there just because they carried that too much weight, and the car sort of pendulumed around on them. So perhaps I need to make a slight change to the diff settings as well. Just add a little bit of coast and make it a bit smoother for them when they're not under power or under brakes.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like I'd say it'd be a mix of that and just racing line. Though obviously it depends on what the driver's more comfortable with. If they know that they're going to continue taking that line, it might be better for them just to open up that diff a little bit to make the car a little bit less aggressive. Though if they believe they can change their driver line in there and stop that habit, it might be better for them to change that and leave that more aggressive diff setting.
Well, I think with the nature of what we've seen from that first race, I think probably a combination of both. You want to change the racing line, and you probably want to just tighten the car up and just make it understeer just a bit more in those slower sections and under power. And if you don't have a spin, I reckon you're in for a solid result. As we saw Ricky Slip walk away with it, we saw Brownie take a pretty solid P4.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like it just that first race was definitely just whoever was most consistent. So hopefully there's a little bit more of a battle pack going on this time, but I'd say it's definitely going to be the same thing again.
And well, there's no excuse for the drivers because the track is rubbered up quite well. I do believe the surface setting was on wasn't on maximum, as we see Luke Joyner get a bit airborne over the anti-cut curves there. But yeah, the track is rubbered up to, I think it's heavy. So there's a lot of grip out there compared to what it is on most weekends where it's on low or medium as a default. So no excuses for them to easily slide off the road. It's all down to your left and right foot and both your hands. So as you see, Brandan Rose looks like he's trying to set a speed record down the back straight. He's just avoided the chicane altogether.
Looks like he'll this turn up here will be very, very fun for him. Turn 10. Be a bit of a wild ride through there at 240 odd k an hour.
A slide there through turn 11. He's actually taking turn 11 quite nicely this time. Yeah, quite nicely. Oh, very wide there. Bit too hot.
Thankfully, no gravel trap there. So he's able to continue on without getting bogged down. And
oh, there he goes.
There was a looks like he's a bit over driving on the warm-up lap.
Yeah, he's out there having fun. We've got Luke Joyner without a rear wing, so he's had an accident. He's driving backwards coming out of the chicane. So what has he done? Has he just done a J-turn? Is he trying to finish the lap in reverse? He's tried to J-turn it and ended up in the barrier, so that's why he's lost his rear wing. A cracker out there at the moment. He didn't make too many mistakes, but he'll be looking to find just a little bit of time. I'm actually being told the track use is actually medium, so it's a little bit down, but I think we'll find in the race it should get up to heavy should drivers continue to do laps in the warm-up and continue out there in the race.
Just on board with Bolger at the moment. That was a cracking line through. Sorry, I've just completely forgotten which turn that is. Turn 12. Yeah. Oh, turn 11. Sorry, turn 11.
Alright, so right on board. And have a look on the replay. Just looking over, see Bolger's left shoulder, very wide on the entry. He's double apex that beautifully. In fact, he probably could have got on the power a bit earlier. But still, that line through there is superb. And he'll be hoping he can maintain the form he took in qualifying and the warm-up so far into race 2. And put the consistency issues behind him. So he cut to live and misses the apex at turn 1 and is very wide at turn 2. Still got a minute of warm-up to go, so we're just filling time. So if you do have any questions, those that are watching, feel free to ask away. We've got a spinner in the background there. I think that was, yes, Luke Joyner. And he goes in the high-tech GP. And once again, he's going to try and J-turn it. Unfortunately, he's just turning it and he's not getting on the brake. You actually have to blip the brake a little bit if you want it to get a go around. And he's back going again.
Weaving the tyres.
Yeah, he's got Lime Mitch out there. I think Lime Mitch is in the same car as Turmo. He's got the same helmet, I think. So, seeing Lime Mitch go around. No, he's actually different helmet. My mistake.
Different. Yeah, I think Bolger has been listening to the live stream because he got on the power a little bit earlier there through turn 11. So, sounds like he's listening to you.
Cut to a replay and we'll have a look. See a DHL sign upside down there. Someone's hit that. As we tick over to the race session. So we just wait now for the grid to form up and the officials to begin, or let the drivers begin the formation lap. What driver would listen while driving? That'd be stupid. Well, Luke, apparently all of you, because you got Turmo in there as well in the live chat.
Luke, we couldn't tell you, unfortunately. But it just seems like they are.
It could be worse. At least they're not in the commentary box with us, just waiting for us to call their name and then flash the lights like a certain Brock Harvey.
So
Alright.
just waiting for a few drivers at the moment.
Yes, still got, I think, Ricky Slick and Brandan Rose. I think they've just hit the race button. Alright, and away we go. A little bit of a slide there from Bolger as he begins the formation lap. But just to go over the grid once again, we've got Steve Bolger will start race 2 from pole position. And we've got the Alabama native Ricky Slick. He'll be starting alongside him on the front row in P2. Followed by Brendan Ross in P3, who's not warming his tyres, and same with Wayne Whitmore. Perhaps they're trying to save their tyres just a little bit, and they'll warm their tyres up later on in the lap. But they're not doing too much weaving, unlike the rest of the field. So Wayne Whitmore will start in P4. In P5, we've got Luke Joyner, who may or may not be listening to us. And then we've got Gary Neville starting in P6. Cracker P7. Followed by Turmo in P8, who might also be listening as well. Then we've got Glenn Miles in P9. He was the first of the drivers not to set a lap time. Followed by Brownie, who's very solid in qualifying 1 and in race 1, but didn't set a lap. He did go out on the circuit at least. He did set a time in the first sector, but must have had a track cut or a spin somewhere and decided to press escape. So he'll start 10th from, well, in race 2 and 3. And then we've got Lai Mitch joining us for the first time tonight. He missed out on race 1 due to him being busy, but it's good to see him out there, and he'll start in P11 for races 2 and 3.
Looks like Luke Joyner didn't like the 150 metre board. Decided to take it out on his warm-up lap there. And he's taken out a bollard too.
He's taken out that yellow bollard. Hopefully the ones at the other corners, which are a bit more blind, is still there, because might get drivers getting a bit lost out there.
That might be your strategy.
Yeah, perhaps. There we go. On the replay, there goes the 150 board. Didn't like that very much. And yeah, running into the bollard inside of turn 10. Back live though. Now, looks like we've got Brendan Ross and Wayne Whitmore just warming their tyres up a little bit more than what they were in the first sector of the lap.
Well, just looks like Lai Mitch had a spin there.
Yes, he's dropped on the field there, so I'll just have a look on the replay. What's he done here? So this is at turn 12. Yeah, he's just gassed it up while a little bit too sideways and warming his tyres while they're cold, and around he goes. Oh, and he's almost ended up in the barrier there as we cut back live. But we've got Bolger on pole. I think we've got Gary Neville just out of position on the grid. No, well, got the lights on. Got 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. Away we go. Bolger got away fairly quickly, and it looked like Gary Neville got away fairly well too. But Bolger is well ahead before turn 1, so he got a cracker at the start. Brandan Rose is going to have a look up the inside. No, he's going to stick behind Ricky Slick. And a little bit of contact between Whitmore, Gary Neville, and I think it was Luke Joyner. Gary Neville just a little bit too hot into turn 1 and ran into the side of Whitmore. Thankfully Whitmore's okay, but Gary Neville's been spun around. But Steve Bolger leads. He's got Ricky Slick all over the back of him now. Coming into turn 5, he's had to go defensive already. In fact, he's got a little bit of a serve there as well from Ricky Slick between turns 5 and 6. And Slick's got a fantastic run out of turn 6.
Turmo and Brownie have a touch just after turn 5. It looks like they're both okay, though still hot at it.
And they're side by side back there. Brownie already up 1 spot with Gary Neville being spun around. Brownie just doesn't quite have the top speed at the moment, but he's going to try and brake. No, he's not going to try and brake later. Decides against it. Stay behind Turmo for now. Line Mitch, he's had a good start. He's up 4 spots. And got Cracker having a look at Luke Joyner. Cracker's had he's had a crack of a start. He's up 2 spots, and better make that 3 because he's now in front of Luke Joyner. Joyner's going to try and hold on around the outside at turn 10, and he's going to do it. So it looked like Cracker must have lifted through turn 10, and that corner is flat in these things, but they're going to go side by side through turn 11. And Joyner being on the outside, it's dropped him behind Cracker and Whitmore, who's going to have a look up the inside into turn 12, but to no avail. Opportunistic from Whitmore, and Cracker up to 4, so he's had a great start. Up at the front, Steve Bolger's edged a little bit away from when we last saw him from Ricky Slick, who's got Brandan Rose right behind him. That said though, Bolger not too good through the final turn, and that's allowed Slick to close in.
Ooh. Big contact between Brownie and Turmo there. Not too sure how Turmo's looking, but it was a big contact. There was a spin.
And we've got Gary Neville's gone around at the final turn as well. So what's happened there? So it's like, yeah, Neville's going to gas it up and go. Yeah, he's gassed it up and gone around there. So it's dropped him down. He's had a shocking first lap. The front though, these front 3 battling away quite nicely. Slick having a look up the inside of turn 6. It's very risky. Bolger holds on for now, and Brandan Rose is right there as well, so they all run very wide on the exit of turn 7. Bolger going defensive early. Slick's going to have to go to the outside. No, he's going to send it on the inside. Both of them very, very late. Over the anti-cut goes Ricky Slick and holds on for now, but in real life he'd probably have a sore back. A little bit of a slide on the exit for Bolger. And they're going to... Well, Bolger got the better run out of the chicane, and he's got Brandan Rose in his slipstream, so Ross will probably move up to P2 while Bolger retakes the lead, and Ricky Slick back down to P3. Ricky Slick having a look up the inside of Brandan Rose, but not going to get it done into turn 11. As you see, Steve Bolger run wide. That's going to drop, surely it's going to drop him down behind these 2, and it does. A costly mistake, unforced error. Unfortunately, Bolger just making too many of them, but he still is within striking distance of Ricky Slick and Brandan Rose. And as long as Brandan Rose is in front of Ricky Slick, I think Steve Bolger is still in the game. But if Ricky Slick hits the lead, I think we could see him drive away once again. But that said, Ricky Slick all over the curve at the final corner, and Bolger's gone around as well. So both of them just too aggressive. One with the curve, one with his right foot. And they've both dropped a heap of time to Brandan Rose, who's now got 2 seconds over Ricky Slick, and he's got 1.2 over Cracker. And now we've got Bolger and Joyner side by side into turn 1.
Looks like Bolger is now behind Luke Joyner, just sitting behind the back there. So he's had a shocker last lap with multiple mistakes there. Very unfortunate for him, coming from the lead.
Yes, and I do apologise. We did have the title screen up there, but has been 6 now. And yeah, side by side, Luke Joyner and Steve Bolger into turn 5. Very awkward, but no contact. They're still battling out there. But, at the front, 1.7 between Ross and Slick, 3.5 between Slick and Cracker, so they've pulled quite a bit of a gap in the first sector, and Cracker and Whitmore battling it out now for the final spot on the podium. Whitmore very conservative through the chicane, and Cracker lost the back end to the second part of it. Whitmore's going to go around him very slowly, but he's going to get the job done. And that will move Whitmore now into P3.
It does look like Bolger has gone around Joyner as well.
He has, but they're going to go side by side. They're going to go side by side through the flat out turn 10, and now into turn 11. Joyner has the better line, but Bolger's going to try and get him on the switchback, and he does so for now, but Joyner's going to hold on around the outside and get that position back. So fantastic driving from Luke Joyner. Did not give up on the position. Held on around the outside, and he stays in P5 for now. And in fact, these guys have closed up quite a bit on Cracker and Whitmore in front, despite obviously these two battling. And Turmo as well, he's closed up onto the back of these two as they continue to battle.
Doesn't look like. Oh, Ricky Slick looked like he's made about half a second on Ross. So it does look like he's clawing back. Though saying that as well, as Ross makes a mistake there, he's gone out wide, so that's going to hurt him massively.
Yeah, Bolger does have pace in that thing, because he's only about half a second slower than the fastest lap of the race, which was just set by Ricky Slick, and he was battling with Luke Joyner throughout that lap, so he is still in the game, but he's going to have to get a hurry up and get past Cracker and Whitmore.
Absolutely.
As you say, Ricky Slick has gained about half a second on Brendan Ross on that last lap. Just looking at live races, and on that last lap, in fact, it was half a second. 2:02.5 for Slick, 2:03.0 for Ross, and Bolger wasn't too far away for a lot of that lap, but was held up. And it looks like Luke Joyner has dropped down the field, so he's had a spin. He's now battling with Brownie. So yeah, just cut to the replay. Coming out of turn 5 and 6, he went up the inside and he got on the curb and around he went. Turmo was on the anti-cut there, and he was bouncing around everywhere. So it's all happening once again. Haven't had as many spins so far, but we've had plenty of action, thankfully, to make up for it.
Looks like Ross is really pushing this lap, trying as hard as he can to keep his car out in front. He's just the rear end there. It's just at the point of sliding. So looks like he's holding that car right on a knife's edge.
He's pushing hard, but despite that, Ricky Slick, he's gained about half a second again on this lap. So Slick is closing. Although that said, I think the final sector, Ross might have eked out a bit of an advantage. And lost about a tenth in the final sector, did Ricky Slick, but he's still overall on that lap gained about 0.4 of a second or so. And that was mainly in the first sector. So I think we'll see those two battle it out for the remainder of the race. They're 7 seconds in front of Wayne Whitmore now. And Whitmore is edging away from Cracker, who's 2 seconds behind. And behind Cracker, Steve Bolger 2.5 seconds behind. He's got Turmo, who's travelling quite nicely at the moment. He's about 1.5 behind him, and he's not really going away from Steve Bolger. So Turmo doing a good job at the moment.
Looks like Turmo's using that wider line at turn 5 there, which has helped him massively with his clawback to Bolger.
Yeah, in fact, this lap alone, you can just see visually compared to where he was. That was almost 1.5 seconds. Yeah, look at that, 31.6 for Turmo in the first sector, which is faster than anybody on this lap, and he was a good half a second faster, 0.6 faster than Steve Bolger in the first sector. That was probably all because of that corner alone. So nice and quick through there. A little bit sideways on the curb at the chicane though.
It does look like a lot of the drivers are still using the same line, though managing that turn a bit more, whilst Turmo looks like he's actually changed his line into that turn completely, which is definitely helping him in his case.
Interesting to see we're right on board with him for the remainder of this lap. We'll see if he does the same thing into the final corner as well, because they are similar compromising series of corners. And as you can see, they're visually closing in on Cracker in front. And Whitmore ain't far away, so we could see obviously a battle for the lead between Slick and Ross, but then for third place we could see Whitmore, Cracker, Bolger and Surma all battle it out as well, because they all start to get a little bit closer together.
Yeah, there's 3 laps coming up after this lap, though saying as well they're very long 3 laps. So it'll be...
Oh, look at that, Turmo very quick compared to Steve Bolger in that final turn, and he's right behind him now. Turmo purple in the middle sector as well, so he's flying at the moment. And there it is, 2:02.4, fastest lap of the race.
About 1.1 seconds quicker than Bolger alone in that final lap.
Yep, and Brendan Ross must have got a track. Oh, he's run wide there, turn 2. He's up all over the place. Hasn't spun it though vitally, so he's still in the game. But yeah, running wide, costing him about a second or so, 1.5 seconds. Oh, let's see. Cut to Whitmore. Whitmore's at a half spin. I think his rear tyres are about cooked, I reckon. It's Whitmore's, and that's allowed Cracker once again in front of him, and Bolger now right behind him, but Bolger had to get out of the throttle to avoid running into the back of him.
Turmo is right back in this. He's probably gained about a second there, just in that little instant alone.
And we're going to go 3 wide. We're going to go 3 wide. No, Whitmore decides better against it. All of them lock up. Whitmore runs wide again. Cracker's gone around. I don't know if there's contact, and Turmo ran the outside at the chicane. So Turmo up 2 spots in one, and Whitmore and Cracker, they've dropped 2 spots in the space of half a sector.
I bet they're happy with that. That's a lot less pressure for them in the last couple laps of this race.
Well, widely for Bolger, it allows him just to clear them, and should anything happen to Ross and...
There's been big contact between Whitmore and Turmo. Looks like Turmo was defending on turn 10. Whitmore decided to squeeze him around the outside, and looks like they've both made contact.
It's just cut to the replay. Yeah, sort of Turmo on the inside. It's not a corner where you really brake heavily, and Whitmore's turned in on him a little bit aggressively there and spun them both around. And that's allowed Cracker in front of Turmo. Hasn't cost Turmo too many places, but it's lost him quite a bit of time. Whitmore's Whitmore's had another spin because he was in front of him. He's gone off the road. Which corner is that? In fact, no, it looks like Whitmore has actually redressed that position, so that's why he's got back past Turmo. Turmo and Cracker continue battle, and Cracker's run wide there. And that's going to give Turmo a fairly decent run to turn 3. Let's have a look. And he's got the job done. We've got yellow flags out there somewhere. That's it's Glenn Miles, I think. You see a flash of pink. Yep, there he is off to the side. Turmo a little bit sideways, and Cracker a little bit more sideways again. So I think they're just starting to fall into that line again. And they're just going a little bit too wide through turn 4 and compromising themselves into turn 5 over that bump. And it's putting a bit too much strain on those rear tyres.
Yeah, it just looks like they're doing what they're comfortable with at the moment, which is obviously that wider line, just because they've got so much going on at the moment with all the drivers and everyone around them, as Cracker does have a pretty decent slide there. Though saying that as well, looks like they're all holding their own at the moment.
Yeah, they're doing much better than what they were in the first race, but there's still quite a number of half slides and slides out there. At the battle for the lead, probably the closest, or one of the closest battles out there on the circuit. We haven't seen much from the last couple of laps because we've been watching Bolger, Turmo and Cracker and Whitmore all battle it out. But Ross leads. He just set his personal best for the race at 2:02.8, so the lap times are down quite a bit from race 1. But the track, I believe, isn't as rubbered up as what it was for race 1. 1.6 between these two, although it does look a little bit closer at the moment. A little bit of a switch there through turn 4 for Ross. Again, not the greatest line through turn 5, and Ricky Slick's gained quite a bit of time there. His gap now under a second, so good 7/10 of a second in 1 sector for Ricky Slick, and at a vital time he might even get a sniff of a slipstream as we see Brandan Ross move to the inside of the track to try and break the toe. A bit of a slide there through the chicane for Ross. It's, once again, you're going to give Slick a little bit more incentive to keep pushing, and he's definitely within slipstream distance now. As you can see him just edge a little bit closer as you go through the flat out turn 10. That gap 4/10 of a second at the middle split. Got 1 lap to go. Well, the next lap will be the last lap, so this will go right down to the end. So you're right on board Ricky Slick in his rust bucket. Both taking that wider line through penultimate corner. Slick sort of setting himself up much better for the final turn. Makes up just a little bit of time on Brandan Ross, who's starting to weave down the straight to break the toe. 2:02.9 for Ricky Slick compared to a 2:03.8 for Brandan Ross as they start the final lap. These guys are a good 17 seconds in front of Steve Bolger. Slick has had a good run through the first chicane, and he's right there with Brandan Ross. It's all going to be about setting himself up here through this twisty bit through turns 3, 4, 5 and 6. Give himself a chance into that into the chicane on the back straight there. Don't want to lose the back end through here. He's not done so, but he's running a little bit wide. But he's definitely close enough for a toe. But I don't think he'll be close enough into the chicane. I think the next best opportunity for him is going to be into turn 11. Shows his nose. He's going for it. Almost runs into the back of Brandan Ross, and he's had to cut the chicane. He's stayed within slipstream distance. So he's going to keep his foot in it, and he's still probably got one chance now into the final corner. Probably he's just a little bit too aggressive into the chicane. Should have been a little bit more patient, but went for it anyway. Still within striking distance, so he pushes very hard on the exit of turn 11, and that's a drive-through. So he's got two. He must have had too many track cuts. He must have got one from cutting the chicane earlier in the lap, and he's done it there again. So we've missed out on his early track cuts, but that will drop him 25 seconds, I believe, is the standard penalty. So he's going to have to push, otherwise he'll find himself behind both Steve Bolger and Turmo. So Brandan Ross will take race 2 and break Ricky Slick's winning streak. Ricky Slick will cross the line in second, but he'll be at least third, with Steve Bolger being within 25 seconds. But the question remains, will Turmo be within the 25 seconds to take advantage of the 25-second penalty the game hands out? So Bolger, P2. And yes, Turmo is within the 25 seconds just by a quarter of a second. So Ricky Slick 4th place, Cracker 5th. Brownie will finish in P6. Luke Joyner probably be a bit disappointed with his efforts. He finishes in P7. And I think Whitmore's out of fuel. Whitmore is out of fuel coming out of the final corner. Unless he gets a push, he's not going to make it. So his horror. Rounds 3 and 4 continue. Yeah, Gary Neville drives past him. Wayne Whitmore is stranded. And Glenn Miles, I don't know if he's finished or not, but I don't think he has.
No, looks like he's coming around the final couple turns now.
Yeah, and Line Mitch is out, so... And in fact, yeah, Whitmore has pressed escape, so Whitmore retires with about 200 metres to spare, running out of fuel. The Cardinal sin in motorsport, not putting enough fuel in the car to last the race distance. And of course, even if he realised he wouldn't have made the end, you can't refuel in these cars. So you've got to put enough in to make it to the end, and he was just playing it a bit risky and got caught out. And there it is. There's Glenn Miles, finishes in 10th place, but he was a lap down. So it doesn't get classified in front of Whitmore, but that will be fixed in the points standings. So Josh had a number of good battles throughout that race, but towards the end it did die off. But still, some great battles for the lead, and then great battles for third place there for a while.
Yeah, that was a lot better, a lot cleaner race for the drivers there. So it was really good to see all the little battle packs going on. It looks like a lot of the drivers are within the same sort of lap time or very similar sort of lap times. So it's good to see a good scrap for battling. There was a couple incidents there, though I would say a majority of them were racing incidents, bar one. So look, pretty happy with that result. It's going to be very interesting for race 3.
Yeah, reverse grid, of course, with the results coming from the second qualifying session, and for that we'll actually take a short break as we set that up. But we do hope you join us for the final race of the evening, and hopefully the drivers put on another fantastic show. So we shall be back shortly. Alright, and welcome back. Got about 4 minutes of the warm-up remaining. We are a couple drivers short. A couple guys have jumped out in the warm-up, just trying to have a look and see who they are. Because it's messed up the reverse grid order, or it's at least confused me anyway. But yeah, we are a couple drivers short. I do believe Glenn Miles is in the server. So who is not here? Because we should have, I think it's 11. But yeah, we are a couple drivers short at the moment. But hopefully in this reverse grid race we do see some good action and some nice clean action. There's no incidents with drivers starting out of position as we have done in other series.
So it does look like Luke Joyner has entered the track at the moment for fairly hot straight out of the box. So it looks like he's trying to do some race laps.
Yeah, so it looks like the reverse grid order, the old batch file wants to mess me around a little bit for whatever reason. So just keep trying until we get it right, but do have 2 minutes to go. And it just does not want to do it, so yeah, so it's also short of Wayne Whitmore. He's not in the server at the moment, so that might be partly the reason why it's being thrown out. And again, it still does not want to. Poor old AMS. It just does some things fantastically well and doesn't do other things so well. So I do apologise. Hopefully, might have to restart the warm-up to get it right, but we will get there in the end. Again, I do apologise for having to delay the start here, but AMS just doesn't want to play ball. Do apologise, folks. Still sorting this out at the moment. Hopefully, should be done in the next minute or two. Alright, we do apologise. We're just going to bump it over to the race anyway. And thankfully, it looks like the order is pretty correct. Glenn Miles, for whatever reason, we put his name in multiple times, spelt it different ways, spelt it the correct way, and it just wouldn't want to come up. But we are here for the reverse grid race. We're about to get underway. Unfortunately, about 5 minutes or so out of schedule. The drivers are very keen to get going. They're all gridding up fairly quickly at the moment. Alright. Turmo gets us underway for the reverse grid. Of course, he made a mistake after setting a blistering first two sectors in qualifying 2 and then mucked it up at the final corner. So he will be leading us away for the final race this evening. Alongside him will be Cracker. And behind him, Gary Neville starting in 3rd place with Luke Joyner in 4th. Brandan Rose in 5th place. Ricky Slick will start in 7th. And you've got Steve Bolger knocking over the bollard there at turn 3. He'll start in P7, and he'll be hoping for 1 or 2 less spins in this one and to contend with a win, because he has had pretty solid pace. He just hasn't been able to use it all the time, and by battling other guys after having a spin at some point. Behind him in 8th place will be Brownie, who had a solid run in the first race. His second race wasn't quite as strong, but still pick up a fair chunk of points. Did believe he finished in 6th or 7th in race 2. And then we'll have Glenn Miles starting at the back for this one. We've only got 9 cars for this one. Looks like Wayne Whitmore and I believe Lime Mitch have not made the race 3 start here. Well, Josh, reverse grid time. How do you reckon this one's going to play out?
You know what? I don't even know at this stage. Obviously, I feel like the Bolger, Ricky Slick, and Brendan Ross are going to eventually work their way forward. But saying that as well, if one of the guys up the front, like Cracker, Turmo, if they have a good start, or even if there's a little bit of contact, it can turn into carnage pretty quickly. So I couldn't say at this stage. This is a hard circuit with a lot of aero grip needed to run around, and all the cars seem pretty bunched up at the start. So, you know what? I can't say.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting race. We have seen Ricky Slick and Brandan Rose have rocket starts from the back in these races in the past, both in touring cars and in these F3 series. So they are going to be ones to look out for. But you never know. You know, you've seen them. A lot of drivers struggle with spins and oversteer in general, as Turbo knocks out another bollard this time at the final turn. So
He's not a fan of those bollards one bit.
Obviously not. But yeah, if they get caught up in a battle, or if they have a spin of their own, we could see a different race winner. And it's certainly not going to be easy. So the first lap will sort of decide that. If everyone is able to get through there cleanly and don't make it easy for them, it'll make for a very interesting race. Alright, looks like we're just about all formed up. Although Brownie is a little bit far back in his grid slot. We are about to get underway. 5 lights. Away we go. Looks like Steve Bolger got a fantastic start down the field there, and he's already up the inside of a number of cars. But Turmo will lead away. Gary Neville having a look up the inside of Cracker, but very early on the brakes is Gary Neville, and that sort of balked Steve Bolger, as we see Gary Neville on the gas a little bit too early, and he's spun around. He's kept his front wing, but costly spin for him. But Ricky Slick and Brandan Rose already up a spot each. So Ricky Slick looking up the inside now, the outside of Brandan Rose. They've got Steve Bolger right behind, and there's a spinner.
Ooh.
It's Cracker. And there's another spinner.
Wow.
That's Luke Joyner, and that's unfortunately led to Brownie going around. So already got Brandan Rose into second, Ricky Slick into third. We've got Bolger in fourth, but he's got Luke Joyner right on his gearbox and having a look up the inside going into the chicane, and Ricky Slick in front of him having a look at Brandan Rose as all of them very late. I thought Luke Joyner's going to sail into the back of Ricky Slick, but he holds on to it and takes fourth place from Bolger, who almost ran into the back there and almost lost the back end of Luke Joyner in the mid part of that chicane. Ricky Slick still having a look up the inside now of Brandan Rose into turn 10. And with all this battling going on, Turmo 4.8 seconds in front, but he'll be hoping just to keep it clean and hope that Ricky Slick, Brandan Rose and co just keep battling and keep him out there in front.
Ooh, Bolger had a big slide there coming up off turn 11. He looks like he's compromised his exit there, though. Looks like he's got Joyner just under brakes coming into turn 12.
It's been very, very hard on his rear tyres already, Bolger. Did see the slide in the chicane, and then again there, you see a bit of a lock up there from either Slick or Ross.
Ricky Slick, that one.
Was Brandan Rose very wide on the exit and has to go well off the circuit to avoid the sleeping policeman. Behind them, Bolger's got a good run on Luke Joyner. It's going to have a look and make a move on the inside into turn 1. And he gets it done for now and sets his sights on Brandan Rose in front. Ricky Slick was able to pull back 0.4 of a second in the final sector to Turmo, but it is a fairly sizable gap, and Turmo has had moments of pace. We did see him set the fastest lap of the race at some point. I think it was the midpoint of the race last time out.
Joyner's just had a spin. He's going reverse up the road, nearly took out Bolger, who went out wide on turn 4.
Well, thankfully, I haven't seen anybody collect Joyner. That's dropped him down a few spots. So, already on lap 2, and I've had some spinners. It's more like Beyblades than car racing at the moment on this circuit. And the gap 4.3 between Turmo and Slick. So Turmo quite quick in that first sector, able to keep Slick at bay for now. It's all going to be about not making a mistake for Turmo. If he doesn't make a mistake, it's going to be difficult for Slick to claw that gap back down, especially with Brandan Rose right behind. And then behind them is Steve Odd. He's 2 seconds adrift. And Turmo and Brownie, they're sort of on their own just a little bit. And then what Gary Neville is 1.5 behind Joyner. But they're strung out just a little bit, but I do expect some of these gaps to start coming down. And for them to start battling just a bit more.
Tell you what, Turmo's definitely holding his own in these first couple of laps. He's actually, maybe not after that exit, but he's actually broken away a gap, just a little bit of a gap compared to Ricky Slick.
202.6 for Turmo, 202.6 for Turmo, 202.5 for Ross, and a 203.8 for Bolger. So yeah, those front three all within a tenth of a second. As you see once again, Brendan Ross very wide on the exit and having to get well off the circuit to avoid the anti-cut curbs.
I'm not too sure of what happened there, but it looked like, just from my screen, it looked like Ross was actually avoiding a collision with Slick.
I did cut to him very late there, so I didn't quite see what happened, but there you go. Let's just have a look. I think Slick did take an odd line through the chicane, but I think Brendan Ross also took a very odd line and probably wasn't going to make the chicane anyway with the line he took.
Fair enough. He might have just been carrying a lot more speed through there. It just looked like from my angle he was going to collect him. So
yeah, I think Ross would have ran wide on the exit had he not turned out or had to avoid Slick anyway. And anyway, he's right behind him still. And Turmo still travelling quite nicely. At 4.5 seconds to Slick.
Ross had a big lock up.
Certainly did. He might be driving a little bit of a 50-cent piece. Bolger setting a purple middle sector. His first sector is a bit slower than the cars in front. And with that, Brendan Ross as well, running wide at turn 2. He did pick up a track cut for that. And I'm pretty sure he would have got one for one of his cuts earlier in the race as well at the final corner. So we could see another drive-through penalty play out if he continues to push as hard as he is at the moment.
So Ricky Slick had he was very heavy on the pedal there coming out of the final turn. He actually flicked his car right over to the right-hand side of the circuit. So he's pushing at the moment to try and catch Turmo and get away from Ross, but neither seems to be working.
Well, Turmo's travelling quite nicely. Just set the fastest lap of the race at 202.1. Ricky Slick wasn't far off. He set a 202.2, and Brendan Ross didn't set a lap time due to his track cut. And once again, he's had to cut the circuit there between turn 3 and 4, and that'll be another cut. He's going to be on eggshells for the rest of the race, because if he cuts one more, I do believe he will pick up a drive-through penalty as he loses the back end there coming out of turn 6 and takes a bit of pressure off Ricky Slick.
Does now that the pressure's off Ricky Slick, just for a moment, it'll be interesting to see what he's able to pull out of the bag.
He certainly doesn't have to worry about the driver in his mirrors. That said though, Ricky Slick very wide at the chicane, having to cut the circuit, so that'll be a track cut for Ricky Slick, and we did see him drop down to 4th place for picking up his final track cut on the final lap of the race in race 2. But Turmo driving superbly at the moment, able to maintain and ever so slightly increase the gap to Ricky Slick behind.
Well, looks like Ross went wide on the exit of turn 10 there again, so it's interesting. He's really pushing the boundaries at the moment for a drive-through penalty.
Because he will only have one, maybe at most two warnings remaining before he gets pinged. I think Turmo's had a spin because the gap's dropped down to 2.7, so we'll just cut to him. Just lost 2 seconds in the sector, the final sector. Oh yes, he's at a half spin coming out of the final turn. Just got over on the other side of the curve on the outside, the final turn, and that's cost him a lot of time. Lost him 2 seconds. Didn't spin it though, and still retains the lead. But that'll put more pressure onto himself. He's probably just got to refocus himself and start hitting his marks again. And just think about setting himself up for a couple of these corners instead of just pushing as hard as he can. His Ricky Slick is coming. Down another 2/10 at 2.5 seconds now. Brandan Rose continues to push. He's not far away. They're still 1.4 behind Ricky Slick. These guys about 3.5 seconds over Steve Bolger, and Bolger's got a good 8 seconds over Brownie in P5, who's up 3 spots. He's done a solid job so far, although he did have a bit of a spin, and I think it was on lap 1 or 2 there early on. Next closest battle, Luke Joyner and Cracker, and a second between them in 6th place.
Even Bolger's not out of this equation at the moment. If one of these guys have a spin, he's straight onto the podium. So he's only 7 seconds behind Turmo, who's leading the race at the moment. So if one of these guys have a spin, he's right back onto the steps.
Yeah, I think that first 2 laps is really starting to haunt him at the moment, because his pace has been a bit more consistent than those in front of him. And he's fairly quick in the first sector, though he did lose a bit of time to Ross and Slick, but he's purple in the middle sector. He's just got to find a little tenth here or there. Oh, that's not a good line coming through the final corner. It's just those little bits. If he puts it all together, he's very quick, but at the moment, just running a little bit wide here and there. It just cost him a bit. Still, 2:02.7, solid lap time, but he's about half a second off those cars in front, so he lost a lot of time in that final sector where he would have gained. But yeah, as you say, only 7.2 behind Turmo. A couple of spins here or there, and he's right in the game.
I was just on board with Brandan Rose there. He looks like he's being very careful at the moment. He's trying the best he can to stay between the white lines. He looks like he knows that he's on. Oh, as he's had a big slide there.
Oh, he's around, and there's Bolger. He's going to move up. He shouldn't lose position to Brownie, but we'll just cut to a replay. And I do believe that Turmo also had a slight mistake at turn 5 as well. That's cost him a lot of time. So we'll just see what Brandan Rose has done. I think he's just clipped the curb. Yeah, he's clipped the curb, unsettled the rear, and he's just pendulumed around. It had a clumsy looking spin. So that stopped him now 3.5 seconds behind Bolger. And so it's just going to be a straight battle between Ricky Slick and Turmo. That gap was 1.5 seconds at the first split, and it's now 1 second at the second split. So Turmo, that pressure is starting to build. He's just got to start hitting his marks once again. And worry about his marks as opposed to the gap behind him, I think.
I think if Turmo is consistent throughout these last few laps and doesn't even look at his mirrors, just decides to keep pressing on the way he has been for the first 6 laps of this race, I think he'll actually hold out Ricky Slick. Though saying that as well, Ricky's got a taste, and as we have seen in these last few races, as soon as he gets a bit of a taste at the top step, he really sends it. He really goes for it and tries to get that win.
Once again, Turmo took an unconventional line through turn 14 and lost a little bit of time at the final corner. So he's just pushing hard. So I think he's just lost track of what found him pace earlier in qualifying before making those little slight mistakes, and what found him pace early on in this race as well. So I think he's just overdriving it, just thinking about it so much. I think he's just got to just forget about his mirrors, turn them off, turn them around, not look at them, and just focus on hitting every apex and braking point. And if he does that, I think he'll, as you say, he'll take the win if he can do that. But at the moment, it doesn't seem like he's doing that.
No, saying that as well, Ricky Slick did just make a mistake through turn 5. Looks like they both took the unconventional line, as we've been talking about throughout this stream. But Ricky Slick did go just a tad wide and compromised his exit using the curb. Looks like he had to roll off it rather than get his foot down. So just waiting those extra couple meters, which has hurt him down the back straight there.
And Ricky Slick pushing very hard into the chicane, the back straight there, the Mr. Straight. massive lock-up with the inside tyre, but I don't think it cost him too much time. In fact, he gained a couple tenths on Turmo. But yeah, it's just going to be about the little micro mistakes and eliminating them for both drivers. If you don't make a mistake from now on, you'll win the race, because all it would take with the gap and with these cars is just that little bit of a slide, a little bit of a lock up and to run wide, and it's going to give a car behind a good run at one of the long straights, or it'll break the toe.
So it looks like we've got some lap traffic at the moment. It looks like Glenn Miles, he has
got out of the way.
The guys.
Yeah, he did. Was off the road and thankfully hit the brakes instead of just taking the apex. But it might have disrupted Turmo a little bit, because that gap did come down quite a bit at that last corner there.
Yeah, I do think so. It looked like Glenn Miles actually was off the track and looking directly towards the apex, and he had to slam on the brakes. Turmo was aware of that and he went wide compared to Ricky Slick, who was able to hit that apex perfectly. So looks like there was a bit of a disruption there, though.
Yeah, a little bit of a slight mistake from Turmo. Ran a little bit wide there at turn 3 and 4, and a little bit of a slide as well, and that's allowed Ricky Slick right onto his tail now. So Slick very, very wide, but he will still be in the slipstream of Turmo in front. So Turmo will have to go defensive at some point, either on this straight before the chicane or just after, unless Ricky Slick makes a mistake at the chicane. So it's going to be very, very tight between these two until the end.
Just in those last couple hundred meters before the braking zone, Ricky Slick is, with that slipstream, is able to get a massive jump on Turmo there. So now enough to be right behind him.
Yeah, Slick is much, much faster through that chicane. We did see it last lap, and we've seen it now. So go side by side through turn 10. Slick in the lead for now. But Turmo has a look up the inside. Lock up from Slick. He runs wide, and Turmo back up the inside and into the lead for now. And Turmo not giving up. But
great move from Turmo there. That was a very ballsy move, though. He's able to do that. He made it look easy.
It's the best time to overtake someone is just after they've overtaken you. You've got to strike straight away. Otherwise, you let them get away a bit and you won't get them back. So he's got him back, but so he's run wide there over the anti-cut. He's kept his foot in it, and he'll get into the slipstream of Ricky Slick, but he has lost the lead.
He's actually moved over there. I don't know why he's done that.
He should have stayed in the slipstream, yeah, but decides against it. But started their final lap.
Turmo would be spewing about that final mistake there on the final corner.
That said, though, with the way this track goes with the straights, it might not be the worst idea the worst place being behind the leader in his slipstream on the final lap. That said, though, he's not had a good run there through turn 5 or 6, and I think that's just about effectively ended it. So Turmo just overdriving it, and he'll be out of the slipstream. Isn't really following Slick either. He should just be trying to get as much of a slipstream as possible. So barring mistake now, Slick should hold on. He has made a bit of a mistake. But Turmo should be just gunning it right now. He's very conservative. So he doesn't want to spin it, as we've seen a number of drivers do.
That might be his concern at the moment. He might be actually looking at Steve Bolger in third, saying, okay, I might have lost first place here, though I do want to still stand as high up on the podium as I can. So he might be thinking about...
Oh, another lock up as you say that. It's going to give Turmo a chance into the final corner. He's not be close enough into turn 12. So he's just needs a good run through here at 12. And then this little... is counted as turn 13 here. But it's flat out in any car. And now these two corners. If he gets this one right, he might buy himself a ticket, but I don't think he's going to be close enough. And he's not going to be. He uses a bit of curb, but too little, too late. And Ricky Slick will come from the back of the grid to take a race 3 And Turmo will finish in P2. So a solid race from Turmo. Couldn't quite hold on, but still very good race from him. Steve Bolger will finish third once again. He would have been third in race 2, but the penalty to Ricky Slick moved him up to P2. So a third, a second, and a third for Bolger. Got Brandan Rose in P4. Pretty inconsistent in this one. Couple spins as he sends his car off into the some other world there. And then we're going to have Brownie once again in P5. Bit of an anonymous race, but I think he and Cracker have been fairly close all race long. So he's going to finish in P5. Cracker will finish P6. And Luke Joyner, he's had one of the few evenings where he's come through and he's not improved as the race has gone on. In fact, he's going to finish down in P7. Looks like he's slowing down for whatever reason. It slows down, and he's going to have Gary Neville behind him in 8th place there.
If he didn't put his foot down any later, he might have lost that position there. So
he might have.
They send their cars straight into one another. Glenn Miles to finish off the race in 9th.
And he's
without a front wing.
Yeah, he's missing a front wing, so I don't know how long he's been missing that. We did see him a couple laps to go on the inside of the final corner there, sort of distracting Turmo. So perhaps he did it then, but right now missing a front wing, but he'll be 9th, and all drivers will finish the third and final race of the evening.
Oh, he's
popping a mono
wheelie
without the front wing, lifted the front end of the car up.
Doing a Mark Webber.
Yeah, trying to end up in the trees. So we see a number of drivers just doing doughies and running into each other. But once again,
that would be an awesome way to end a race.
It would be ending it upside down. That'll be, I think that's one way I've not finished a race yet. I've done it backwards, I've done it sideways. Haven't done it on my roof or flipping. So hopefully at some point I can achieve that. But just to recap, Ricky Slick the winner, Turmo in P2, Bolger P3, Brandan Rose P4, Brownie P5, Cracker 6th, Luke Joyner 7th, and Gary Neville in 8th place. So Josh, we've had a pretty interesting evening of racing. I think the drivers found that circuit a bit challenging, but it still produced, especially in races 2 and 3, some pretty exciting racing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was especially races 2 and 3 where there was a little bit less spinning and a little bit more driver ability. It seemed like, look, it came down to drivers at the end of the day to me. Personally, I think the track was challenging, yes. I think a lot of drivers had to adjust to the race conditions and what was happening around them. So, look, interesting. It was a very interesting race, very entertaining race. It was great to watch.
It certainly was, especially the ending of that third race there, where Turmo, for the most part, he drove at a pretty high level. He drove at one of his best races, I believe he's had, Automobilista Australia. He's had a couple good runs in the touring cars as well, but I don't think he's won. He might have won a race in touring cars. I'm just trying to think, but certainly in these F3s, that's certainly one of his better drives of the season. Couldn't quite hold on, but Ricky Slick just doing Ricky Slick things really, and able to just continually chip away at the driver in front, and able to get himself in the lead when it mattered most. But just trying to update the points here on live races and sort of see where the points standings lie. So I do apologise. We normally do a driver of the day, but I've had a driver send me a message via Facebook, and I think we'll just ignore the driver of the day for this week. No, in fact, we'll give it to well, at least my personal driver of the day. I think Turmo, he did struggle early on, but that final race, I think that'll give him a bit of confidence going through the rest of the season. He did drive pretty well, a couple minor mistakes, but and couldn't quite hold on for the win. But that third race for him certainly a massive positive, and he'll be hoping to carry that for the remainder of the season.
Uh, Absolutely. Look, I have to say, I have to agree with you there. He's done a fantastic job, able to hold Ricky Slick off for majority of that final race. Look, very, very good effort by him.
Yeah, certainly so. So I'm unable to actually get all the races for live races uploaded. So I won't be able to have the championship standings for us this evening. That will be posted up at some point during the week. But from Josh and myself, thanks for tuning in. And for those that do tune in a bit later, we do hope you have enjoyed and enjoy the action. Coming up at Automobilista Australia, I'm not sure if there's any racing on Wednesday night with the TCAC series. I'll just have a look through Discord and double check. So where are we?
I will announce while you're looking at that. I actually won't be available next week. Unfortunately, I won't be. I'll actually be down in Winton racing in the Hyundai XLs alongside XL Racing Australia in the Winton Super Sprint. So unfortunately, I won't be available for the next commentary.
Is it next week or 2 weeks? Because the next F3 is in 2 weeks' time. So
Yep. So I'll yeah. Unfortunately, I won't be back home after the Super Sprint by that time. So
all good.
yeah.
It's much. I think everybody would much rather be out there doing some kind of real life racing as opposed to just doing it on a computer or PlayStation. So we do wish you the best of luck in the old XLs.
No worries. Thank you. Should be a bit different. So be good fun anyway.
All right, and just to confirm the racing for this week at Automobilista Australia, we don't have any supercars on Thursday. The TCAC is on the 22nd of May at the Montreal circuit. If you want to get involved in that, obviously speak to Brock Harvey. He's the one running that series. On Sunday night, we do have the Formula One 2019 season, and that is we've just had the Monaco round, which was an absolute cluster stuff because of the good old safety car. But the next round of the championship is at Montreal, so that's going to be a break buster, that one. And I do believe there is supercars this weekend off the top of my head in real life, so that means there'll be supercars next weekend at Automobilista Australia. So, from Josh and myself once again, we do hope you've enjoyed this broadcast, and you shall catch me next week with the touring cars, the touring car championship at the. Let me just find it. At Brands Hatch Indy. So we're back in England, and that'll be a very interesting round. They haven't raced around there. Nice little short circuit. Should see some biff and some good racing. So you'll catch me next Monday. And once again, hope you've enjoyed this evening's racing. Catch you then.